Am I the a-hole stories? Am I the a-hole for buying an expensive car instead of helping with my brother's surgery? I, 27 male, lived with my chronically sick brother and my parents. I took over his care while they worked. I handled chores/worked a job, although my parents thought it was wrong, because I wasn't focusing on my brother's care. I was doing well in school but I started failing classes. No college savings because they spent all money on my brother. I ignored my self-care and wasn't eating healthy because they only cooked for my brother. At 16, I was diagnosed with diabetes. My parents thought that was my fault. I was told to continue to care for my brother and work to pay for my medication, because they said they didn't need to deal with my condition on top of everything else. And then I failed at school eventually. CPS was called, but found nothing because my parents were aware. I ended up getting kicked out of the house at 17, because it was my fault CPS came. They chose my brother to take care of and didn't want to deal with me. I worked extra jobs here and there, lived with my then girlfriend, now wife. At 20, we had our firstborn. I tried to reach out to my parents, and let them meet my family despite what they've done, but they blamed me for those decisions. Getting married and having a baby was my fault also, and said, I shouldn't be a dad because I was irresponsible and ignorant. I cut contact permanently. I started getting lucky. I now work in a better field, no degree though, and I earn decent money. Then we had our second baby in August. Whoops, that too was my fault. My parents' words pop in my head whenever I look at my kids, and I begin to question myself. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. My dad reached out to my wife and took my number, that's another story, and contacted me. He got me to listen despite not wanting to. He told me my brother needs a surgery and asked for help. He insisted on meeting with me, but I refused. He sent people to talk, but I refused to meet them. Last week, I went to see him and I told him that I'm not obligated to help. That I'm still dealing with my own condition that was ignored by him. That I do have money, but I wanted to buy a car with it instead, saved up money to buy a car I really like, and I felt good, not gonna lie. He and my uncle started guilting me for buying an expensive car and refusing to help. A relative posted on FB, talking about me buying an expensive car and leaving my parents to struggle. My number was given to everyone, and they kept shaming me. My argument with dad got worse that I had to yell at him again. Just want to tell you about my uncle. He's a hypocrite. He ignored me for years. Even when I got sick, that didn't matter. He made things worse by dumping his issues on my family. Now he acts like he's a decent guy who goes to church regularly. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your parents neglected you for their other son. That is not good parenting. I'm glad you lived your own life, and met someone great to spend your life with. If you give them the money, they won't thank you anyways. Live your own life and forget them. Focus on your wife and 2 kids. I'm sure you are, and will be a great dad. Don't listen to what others say. They don't know the whole story. Don't feel guilted into it, they were not there for you. I doubt they will in the future either. How do parents think they can neglect and kick your child at 17, then expect their help later in life? This is such a mystery to me. Act horribly and expect kindness? Not the a-hole. They neglected you in favor of your brother. I understand wanting to take care of the sick child. However, that does not mean you neglect the other one. I was doing well at school but I started failing classes. No college savings because they spent all money on my brother. I ignored my self-care and wasn't eating healthy because they only cooked for my brother. At 1 I was diagnosed with diabetes. My parents thought that was my fault. I was told to continue to care for my brother, work to pay for my medication because they said they didn't need to deal with my condition on top of everything else, and I failed at school eventually. CPS was called, but found nothing because my parents were aware. I ended up getting kicked out of the house at 17 because it was my fault that CPS came. All of this right here was more than enough reason for you to cut contact the first time. Yet you said that you had the heart to try and invite them back into your life. Unfortunately, it very much sounds like that was a terrible idea since they automatically figured you should go back to helping them with him, even though they never did anything to deserve that from you. Stand your ground, get a restraining order and call the cops if you have to. At least this time you called law enforcement on purpose. And just a reminder, not the a-hole. I'm proud of you for working so hard to get out of that situation and taking care of yourself and your own sickness, and raising what sounds like a wonderful family with a wonderful wife. Don't worry about being like your parents, because it sounds like you're already a million times better than them. Not the a-hole it is telling that everything started to work out for OP, when there was no contact with his parents. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to change my will and include my stepdaughter in it? I'm a 46, male, with a chronic condition. I have 2 sons, James, 20, and Aaron, 16. I have a deceased daughter who passed away when he was 4. To be frank, most of my years, I couldn't focus on work, and so, I don't have a lot of money or owned anything of value. We've always been lower class because medical bills and medication took a lot. James attends community college and has been getting support. Aaron will follow his brother's lead. It's what they want and they are becoming independent. I can say I have raised 2 sympathetic, caring, supportive boys who never left me to struggle alone, and I owe them a lot. I just wish I could have sent them to their dream college, but they understand how we all got dealt a bad hand in life. Like I said, I don't have much, all I have is my farmhouse. I've written a will and mentioned that this house goes to both James and Aaron, and that it'll be given to them in the coming years. I've mentioned this to them, they told me, they just wanted me to be okay. I appreciate that a lot. Those words never been said by my own family. This conversation was private between me and them. I've been married to my wife for over a year now. I have a 15-year-old stepdaughter who's smart and very respectful. We all get along as one happy family. There were no issues except for this. My wife and I were discussing finances. Because we wanted to have a joint account to share. And she asked me about the farmhouse I own. She wanted to discuss renovating it and stuff like that. I talked to her and told her that this farmhouse does not belong to me. Therefore, I'm not planning on doing anything with it. It in fact belongs to my sons as a way to give back to them, and also support them as a father, especially after being sympathetic despite everything. She thought that was nice. Then she talked about it again, asking me how much I love my stepdaughter and consider her as one of my own. I found this question strange. She asked me if I could include her in my will, and let her share the farmhouse with her stepbrothers. I didn't know what to say, frankly. But I reminded her that all my sons got is this farmhouse, and it belongs to them. I've already discussed this with them, and it was done and written in my will. She said I could update my will and include my stepdaughter. I didn't reply. Then she went on about how she felt her daughter was left out, and treated differently. Arguing that she, as family, deserves to have support, and I was being unfair to her. That she'll notice what her brothers have. I told her my stepdaughter is like my daughter that I lost. Told her to not mix things, and to respect that this is now my son's property. She kept arguing and said I was being inconsiderate of my stepdaughter's feelings. I didn't even bring this up to James and Aaron. They don't have to share what belongs to them. And that's it. My wife's been giving me a hard time about this issue, and just repeating what she said. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, I agree with you, the farmhouse does belong to your sons. Your will was decided before you met your wife and stepdaughter, and I actually find it a little concerning that your wife is being so pushy about your will. And I feel like it's somewhat unlikely that this 15-year-old is going to her mom, constantly bemoaning how unfair it is that she doesn't get a slice of the house. Are the 2 of them really sitting around talking about her inheritance? Give the boys the farmhouse now, avoid death taxes and a contested will. Not the a-hole. OP, read this. Best idea I've seen on here to avoid lawyers' fees, death taxes, will contestation, probate fees, all the fees. Just sign it over to them ASAP, and your wife won't have a reason to keep crying about it. Excellent advice. Not the a-hole, but did you consult a lawyer? Because, in my state, the wife gets a certain amount no matter what the will says, and the farmhouse is presumably part of your estate. Point is, the stepdaughter might get something someday, despite your wishes. My first thought too. The will is irrelevant, because unless there is some pretty rock-solid prenuptial stuff or other legal paperwork going on, the wife gets 100% of everything. The will is basically a wish list for the wife to honor if she chooses. At least in my state, which is a community property state, meaning spouses have joint legal ownership of everything, regardless of when said things came to be. When you marry, you transfer 50% ownership of everything you currently have to your spouse. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for taking my mom's side and telling my wife that my mom did not verbally abuse her? My mom and my wife have never been close, but I don't think either of them have been in the wrong until this situation. They just don't click. My wife is really into making soap. She sells it on social media and recently quit her job to sell soap full-time. My mom has literally never said anything negative about the soap, but when she was asked to buy it, she declined. My wife is like a dog with a bone, trying to get my mom to buy this soap. She asks her every time we see her, and when my mom declines, my wife starts listing the virtues of the soap and trying to force my mom to smell it. She has also brought my mom's finances into it, and argued that my mom and stepdad both make good money, and speculated about how much my mom spends on her wardrobe, which really isn't our business. Well, my mom stopped by the other day to see the kids. Before she left, she used our bathroom, and my wife stood outside the door yelling the whole time about, "How is the soap in there? And, don't you like it?" My mom came out looking pissed, and my wife immediately offered her a friends and family discount. My mom screamed, "I don't want your freaking soap. If you aren't making enough money from the soap, that isn't my problem, and I don't want to hear about the freaking soap again," and then my mom left. My wife immediately asked what I was going to do, and I said that I would talk to my mom, but my wife should have dropped it with the soap. My wife said that wasn't good enough, and that my mom had committed verbal abuse. I replied that I don't consider that verbal abuse. Now my wife is very upset and feels like I'm taking my mom's side, and that I should set boundaries with my mom. But I feel like my mom kind of set a boundary when she said she didn't want to buy the soap, and my wife didn't give a damn about that. Right, well, your wife was verbally harassing her, so she got what she deserved. Not the a-hole. Your wife needed to hear that. She's probably up all her friends' butts about her soap, and driving them away too. Your wife needs to learn that no means no. It could be the best soap in the whole world, but nobody is going to buy it from an annoying nag. Especially if that person is standing outside the bathroom when I'm peeing, yelling at me to smell the soap. That's crossing a boundary. I like to pee in peace. I'm guessing OP's mom wanted the same. Not the a-hole. You're the a-hole for not stopping your wife from harassing your mother over the soap earlier. NTA for taking your mom's side though. Exactly. He should have gotten involved way before it got to this point. Not the a-hole. So your wife can make soap. She should learn how to sell it. Spoiler alert, it's not by irritating people into submission. If she sells it at a farmer's market, does she chase people screaming at them to buy soap? Ahaha. That mental image I got was priceless. I can imagine a lady at a farmer's market, chasing people around and shouting, "Doesn't it smell nice?" The last story is titled, "Am I the a-hole who kicked my husband's cousin out?" Where do I begin? I can't give all details or this would be crazy long. I guess a little backstory. My 30 female husband, 35 male, and I had been together 3.5 years and just got married in September. We have 2 girls. I work from home and take care of the kids, and my husband works 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. For 2 to 2.5 years, we have been taking in my husband's family or friends that needed a place to stay for a while. Things are obviously stressful with COVID, and everything else going on in the US right now. My husband's cousin, HC, 36 male, moved down to Georgia from Chicago area the end of July, to work as an audio engineer for some up-and-coming names in the rap industry. They had a deal to pay for some of his bills and give him a place to stay. Well, things started going south and they apparently weren't holding up on their end of the deal, but I don't know the full story. Anyway, HC ends up spending the night a few times here, and it somehow turns into him basically living with us, even though he never asked. He plays Call of Duty all night. My husband can't get to sleep when he gets home, because HC is being loud. He constantly brags about how he's hanging with all these rich people, even though he complains they don't pay him like they should. Barely brings food into the house, and only brings taco meat because that is all he wants. Gets my kids riled up and loud while I'm working. Doesn't clean up after himself unless I fuss at him, and doesn't even offer to try to pay a bill to help out. My husband and I both have been struggling mentally the past few months, more than normal, and we realized it was stemming from HC being here, on top of our own issues. We decided to have a conversation with HC and explain that we need space, but he's still welcome to come around and hang out. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Oh, so you don't want me here, huh?" We told him it wasn't like that, and to not twist our words. It ended up in me going off on him and calling him a narcissist. Between the gaslighting I hear him do to his girlfriend, the way he talks about this 20-year-old he's been banging with no protection here in Georgia, and just other obvious red flags, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that one. He made a big scene about how he's going to have to sleep in his car, or go back to Illinois. I told him we were not responsible for keeping him housed, and he needed to go talk to one of his rich friends. The part that gets me is him saying he wouldn't have reacted the way he did if we had said something sooner. I know that's a lie. When he finally left, he made a little scene saying, "The narcissist is leaving." I wanted to be petty and say, "At least I'm stable enough to have my own place," but I let it be. No point, I guess. Why does some part of me feel a tiny bit bad? I don't regret what I did. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Pro tip: when someone asks a gotcha question like, "You don't want me here, huh?" the way to answer it is, "Correct. You have overstayed your welcome, and we want you to leave." He put you on the defensive and got to jerk you around the wall like the a-hole he is. Good riddance to him. Wholeheartedly agree. Some people cannot help themselves and think that they are the center of the universe. And how everyone wants to be at their beck and call. The cousin tried to spin the narrative, and put OP on the defensive when he said, "You don't want me here." You have to take control of the situation and answer, "No." Not the a-hole. He took advantage of your generosity and acted like a nuisance, and then tried to play victim when you put your foot down. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He can sleep in his car. Not the a-hole. People who are narcissists will do everything in their power to make you feel bad so that they get their way. From what I can gather, you and your husband seem like good people who were trying to help a family member. However, they took advantage of that from what it seems. At the end of the day, you have to do what is right for you and your family. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day, everyone.